Good evening, good evening. Welcome to CK Bone Ministries. I'm Carla K. Bone. I am just honored to be able to sit before you and broadcast live to you. Remember, I'm here on the 7th. That's every Tuesday, 7 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm here doing the devotionals. And then I come back at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time like I am tonight. And we'll be doing a teaching from my book, Why Me? It's a book club teaching that I do every Tuesday. Listen, I know you guys have been so elated. You've been had Pastor Bone teaching to you guys every Tuesday on the devotionals, and it has been phenomenal. I plugged in on all the Tuesdays, and listen, he is coming with a phenomenal power pack devotion every morning. You don't want to miss it at 7 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. And then I come back like I am tonight doing a book club reading on none other than my own book. Yes, I finally got the work done. I published Why Me. It's a book that is so enriched and so impactful with so many things and lessons and tools and skills and things that you can pull from. Listen, I can go on and on and on and rave about this book. If you haven't picked it up, you might want to pick it up. You can get it at so many different locations at Amazon.com, Trilogy.tv, on my website, www.ckboneministries.org. You can get it at your local bookstore, BarnesandNoble.com. Listen, you want to pick it up. I could just keep going on about this book, but I think this would explain a little bit more.
Have you ever wondered, why me? If so, you're not alone. Why Me? A story of abuse, betrayal, and the ultimate journey to purpose by Carla K. Bone is a brilliant, provoking story that is filled with vivid experiences, lessons learned, and applied wisdom that has shaped Carla's life. Why Me not only invites you into the story, but also allows you to partake in the resolution together and find healing, freedom, forgiveness, joy, and peace. Available at Amazon, your local bookstore, or at Trilogy.tv.
Listen, I am so proud of this book. This book is so rich. You can go to my website and you can order a copy of the book by simply going to www.ckboneministries.org. Click on the button right there that says order my book. When you click on that button, it takes you directly to Amazon.com and you can pick up a copy. It's also available on Kindle. I'm so excited and proud of this work. Listen, this book is it's not a long read, but it's a good read. I've been told by so many people who have read it, they said they couldn't put it down. Listen, I'm just so proud of it. I want you to pick up a copy because I'm doing a lot of teaching from this. And one of the teachings I'm doing tonight, in which I'm doing a whole series of it, is because this book is so power-packed with wisdom. I'm teaching wisdom from Why Me. Wisdom from Why Me. I'm teaching it all the things that I've learned over the years in my life. You know, when I was in my early 20s, now I'm 50 years old. So this 50-year-old woman is talking to this girl that was in her teenage years and in her early 20s and saying, if I could go back and speak to the young girl, what would I tell her? And that's where this teaching is coming from. It's coming from Why Me, my book. And listen, by me being 50 now and that little 8, 9, 10-year-old, that 11 to 15-year-old, then that young adult, that 18-year-old on up in their 20s and 30s, what would I tell her right now? And listen, it's just so much enriched, impact information that I would tell that young girl. And listen, pick up a copy. It's a great gift. You can pick it up for one of your loved ones. It's great for a teenager because I started out my story talking about when I was born and clean up until my high school years and young adult years. It's a great read to be able to talk to teenagers because they're going through a lot. They're going through so much and we got to be able to reach them. I'm certainly proud of it. I want to invite you to visit my website because our e-commerce store is open. Our e-commerce store, you go to my website, www.ckboneministries.org. Click on our shop and it takes you, we have everything from flip-flops to coffee mugs to t-shirts, bags, candles, caps, booklets. We have Christmas ornaments for the upcoming season, teddy bears, you name it. Every time you purchase something on my site, it allows me to continue to bring content and come to you the way that I'm doing and reach way more people than I could possibly do without you. I want to give a special thank you to all of my partners, those of you who partner with this ministry that help me to do what I do every single day. I appreciate your love, your generosity, and your prayers. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube page at CK Bone Ministries or like my Facebook page at CK Bone Ministries. We got a great teaching that's planned for you on tonight. Listen, click that share button. Right there. Yep, talking to you. Stop scrolling. Click that share button. The reason why is because I'm talking about a subject from wisdom, from Why Me, things that I have learned over my years in life. And listen, it's a subject that we all can benefit from and we all can learn from. And I can't wait to get into this teaching on tonight. The subject that I'm talking about tonight that I wish I would have known when I was younger, in my teenage years and high school years and young adult years, I wish I would have known about love. Yes, I'm going to talk about love on tonight. And the reason why it's so important is because all of my life, if you read my book, you will realize my entire life, that's all I sought for. That's all I ever desired. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be in an environment and born into an environment where people were excited that I was here and that they loved me and they nurtured me and cared for me. I wanted that type of environment, but that's not the cards that I was dealt. That's not the home that I was raised in. I was raised in a very dysfunctional home where there was everything from child abuse to just all kind of words that's sown into me that it's not me, and things that no child should have witnessed or even lived through. However, I want you to know that I'm still here. And this is the reason why God has just given me this mantle to be able to reach people who are stuck in their life, stuck in some situation. Maybe you were born into it and you didn't ask for it. Maybe, something happened to you, some kind of trauma over your life and over the years of your life, and you just don't know how to get unloose, how to shake that thing and get away from it. I know that was my story. Every time I thought I had buried it, it started coming back up at the least opportune moment. Every time I thought I got over it, then I would go through another step in life and here it comes again. Every time I thought I had got through it, and when I get through it, always something from trauma from my past met me at the door of my next step. And it's because I had some unresolved things that God needed to heal inside of my soul. I had some soul healing to do. Sometimes you can pray so hard that you want to get out of a situation, but if you don't allow your soul to heal, you would take that same situation to every stage and every phase of your life. And that has been the cornerstone of my life for so many years. I allowed that past to keep coming up, and it kept robbing me of opportunities and my future. And at some point in my life, I think it was somewhere around my 30s, I said, I've had enough. I've had enough. I was like, God, I had enough. I've had the same situation that happened to me over and over again. These are different people, different men, different situations. They didn't all conspire to try to ruin my life. It's something that's going on in me that needs to be addressed, because I firmly believe that I'm a magnet that draws to me what I portray to the world. And so that has been the premise of this book. If you're going through the same thing over and over again, different faces, different places, but it's the same old situation, this book is the book for you. So today I want to talk a little bit about love, because that has been the essence of really what I have been searching for all of my life. I was born into a situation where I didn't even know what love was. It was never mirrored to me. It was never, put before me. It was never something that came organically or naturally in the home. I had no conceptual idea of what love really is. However, I was seeking it because I just knew the way I was living, the way our home was, that was not normal. I don't care how, sometimes when you're in the thick of something, it seems like somebody's unnormal, crazy becomes your normal. And so I went through my young childhood years thinking that crazy was normal. And then when I got to be a teenager and I started having friends and I started seeing how they live and seeing how their family structures are, then I realized that crazy is not normal, and that is normal is what I witnessed, and I'm missing that in my life. That's why it's so important to mirror in front of people what real family structure, what real love is like, because sometimes the way people are born, they have no conception of what it is. And they in search of something, and if they tripped over it, they wouldn't recognize it. And that was me for the better part of my life. I knew that love existed, didn't know what it was, knew that love was a part of who we are as people, but I had no conception of how to obtain it until I ran across God. I just figured it got to be something better than what I'm going through. It has to be a different way than what I'm seeing and what's being mirrored in front of me. And it was through that relationship with Him that I come to understand what love is really all about. And what I thought it was not. Love is just not affection. It's just not holding hands. I remember my first boyfriend. I thought I was in love. And I talk about it so candidly in this book. That's why I told you have to get a copy. Because we were holding hands, and then he gave me a kiss for the first time, and I thought, oh, this guy really loved me. But that was a very guy that wound up pulling a machete on me and trying to kill me with a knife when I wanted to break it off with him. That's not love. All my life, I assumed that love hurt, and it does not. And I want to unpack what real love is, because a lot of us go along through life and we think what's love is not love. Sometimes what we think is love is really just someone possessing you. It could be someone lusting you. It could be unorganic type of love, or a feeling or an emotion, or it could be a whole lot of variety of things. But I want to really unpack love and what it is and what it is not. And then I want to do a cross comparison to what real love is using the Word of God. So listen, I want you to follow along. And if you know someone that don't feel loved and don't feel accepted and don't feel like anybody loved them, this is a perfect time to share this on Messenger. Click it and share it on your platform. They may come across it, or send it to them and tell them, listen, I think you need to listen to this teaching, because this teaching is going to be very instrumental and helpful, to those of us who don't feel loved. And I know for the better part of my life, from the time I could remember at age 5, clean up until then I was in my 30s, I did not feel loved. Not loved by anybody. And that's being honest, because I thought to be loved, I had to prove that I am worthy of love. And that's not love. Listen, let's unpack it. When I define the word love in the Webster Dictionary, it defined love as an intense feeling of deep affection or pleasure in something. That's the way the Webster Dictionary defined it. It defined it as an intense feeling of deep affection or pleasure in something. But listen, as I said earlier, all my life, I did not feel that I was loved. And so I set in quest. It was almost like, Columbus trying to discover America. He set himself on a boat and then started traveling until he found what he was looking for. That's how I felt for the better part of my life. I felt that I was in search of love, right? And I felt that one day I'll come across it. And I'll know it when I feel it. And love, that's a tricky way to see it. Love, and that shouldn't be our objective in life. Love is a natural and organic feeling. It's a natural and organic feeling. We were designed to love. And there's a whole lot of variations and variables that got in the way of us really being the people that God has created us to be and being loving. And I want to unpack that as well. So I want to talk a little bit about my story, how love, it wasn't found in my home. Love was not found nowhere in my home. Even if you measure it against the Webster Dictionary about an intense feeling of deep affection or pleasure in something, it was not found in my home. My home was kind of mixed, and I'm going to talk about unpack a little bit of each one. My home was full of abuse. And like I do, love don't hurt. So, and parents used to say back in the day, this gonna hurt me more than it hurt you. But it wasn't a spanking, it was beatings with chains and belts and buckles and shoes and broomsticks and whatever, was available at the time. That's not love. That's not love at all. And when we put our hands on someone, and even in the adult sense, we put our hands on someone else, and we do it in the name of love. Shame on you. Shame on you. And I'm going to unpack the total reason why. God was unpacking that for me today, and I was just almost in tears. Because when I tell you what God had to say about that, you're going to be astounded. I know I was. Because love is a created feeling, it's an emotion, and it's a deep pleasure and a deep affection for something that comes down deep. And the Father, He had that and have that kind of love for us. And we're made in His image and likeness. So when we put our hands on someone else, are we emulating the likeness of God? I used to tell people all the time, you can't raise adults. Putting your hand on someone is not going to make them conform to your way of thinking, your ideology, and your way of how you do things. You can't raise adults. They already raised. They have a mind of their own. They think of their own. So if you trying to control someone or put your hands on someone and you think you are doing it in the name of love, that is not love. That is not love. That is abuse. You putting your hands on your children in that way, not where you are disciplined for correction. I'm talking about you are beating your kids or leaving them without food or trying to discipline them in a harsh way. The Bible talks about that. That is not love. That is abuse. And the only way you're going to get help is to first admit that you have a problem. And a lot of times our problems are stemmed for when we abuse people and we do it in the name of love. It's because that's what's been mirrored to you in your life. Somebody in your life when you were growing up, they told you they loved you and they put their hands on you. So you equated love with hit. And that's not love. Love with control. And that's not love. So let's unpack love. My home was not only was it abusive, my home was also dysfunctional. It was very dysfunctional. I was raised by a single mom and she had 5 children and it was abuse. It was do what I say, not what you see me do. It was doing things that was not moral. It was things that we did or saw that was unethical. It was total dysfunction. And if I could describe it in just one word, I would use the word chaos. That would describe how I was born. And that's not normal. One of the things that I try very hard, even now being 50 years old, I try to create an environment of peace because I grew up in dysfunction. I grew up in nitpicky and I can't find nothing else to do, so let me pick on you. I'm bored, so let me see what you up to. I'm trying to, do something and it's not working out the way I want it to work out, so let me take my frustrations out on you. That's the dysfunction that I grew up in. And I work extra hard to not live in that type of environment. And if you listening to me today and you're creating that environment or you're living in that environment, it's time for you to do something about it now. Stop putting it off. Start facing the person in the mirror and say, hey, I have a problem. God, help me. That's the beginning stages of recovery. And if you're living in the dysfunction and you're living in the chaos and you're living in the abuse, now is the time for you to go to God on your knees and say, Lord, I need help. I need help. And more importantly, I need to be safe. Now is the time that you do something about it. If you're living in trauma, now is the time that you start sweeping it under the carpet and saying, hey, I need to unpack this, God. And I need you to do it very carefully so that I don't go on an emotional roller coaster. But I need to unpack this because I need to get rid of it. Now is the time. Not yesterday, not I'm fixing to, not I'm going to, or it's on my goal list and on my list of maturation, things that it's just keep maturing and maturing, but I'm never getting around to it. Now is the time. Don't take it into your 2023 year. Don't take it into the new year. Now is the time to unpack it. In the home where I grew up, there was no acceptance. It was more of a toleration. And there's a graven difference between acceptance and toleration. Toleration is, okay, you here, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm just going to tolerate you because I have to. You live here, you're here. I'm going to tolerate you because you're here. There's nothing I can do about it. Instead of an acceptance, let me find out who Carla really is and let me accept her for who she is, even though I had a different father, even though, I was probably considered a mistake at my birth. Let me accept Carla for who she is. She's here now. So let me accept her and love her. That wasn't the case in my home. I was looked at as a constant reminder of a mistake on every facet of the home. So growing up, what do you think I thought growing up? That I was a mistake. Exactly. And a person who thinks that they are a mistake always tend to have low self-esteem, low self-image of themselves. I can go on and on and on. The list is endless. And so now God is using me, now that I know who I am and whose I am, God is using me to help other people who are just like I once was. So let's keep unpacking it. In my home, there was little to no communication growing up. None. What was communicated was always communicated with a belt, a extension cord, a stick, a broom, a chain. What was communicated was always communicated with violence. And that's the reason why, as an adult, I have a very hard time when people don't communicate. Because I'm a communicator. I love to communicate. I love to talk. I love to be on the same page, same accord. I love to have greater understanding. And when people don't communicate and you communicate with your hands, that's a problem. Because that what was mirrored to you, it's time for you to break the generational curses that has plagued your family. Probably your father did it or your grandfather did it. And you saw it and you're mirroring that behavior. It's time to stop it. God said it's time to stop it. And if I'm speaking to you ladies, and it can be some men, because women out there doing the same thing, it's time for you to say no more. I'm done with that. I'm not going to live underneath that. And underneath that trauma, underneath that dysfunction, no longer. I'm not going to put my children through it where they're witnessing this stuff. And because they witness it, typically they wind up becoming aggressors themselves or victims. Because that crazy becomes their normal. So I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I'm hoping that I'm reaching somebody out there. No, in my home growing up, there was no deep affection, inward or outward. No expression. No pleasure, as the dictionary says. No inward or outward expression. And growing up, you didn't know if you did well or you did poorly. You didn't know if your behavior was up to par, but you did know when it wasn't. We were never praised for what we did do that was correct. We was always disciplined for what we did not do. And that is a total imbalance because we have no sense of direction other than this is a direction that you don't do. But what should I have done in that situation? We were never taught. We were always fought. Whew. That's saying something right there. We were never taught. We were fought. And it left us in a box, in a chasm, where we could not be ourselves. No sense of individuality. Everything was just walking the straight and narrow so that you don't upset my mom. And then she goes off on another tirade or tangent. And trust me, I'm not saying anything that, to dishonor my mother in any way. But it's the way we grew up. I have to tell the story because I want to help somebody else who's going through it or somebody else who's raising kids like that or somebody else. Trust me, it's happening all day long, every day. Here in Houston, we had so many cases where kids were, being locked in closets, not being fed. It was all over the news. It's happening even in our today. Child abuse and trauma is such a taboo subject until people don't like to talk about it until it's been exposed. But it's time for us to do something about our trauma now, said the Lord. Now. Let's get unstuck together. The home, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that love, because that's so important, because, in my quest all of my life, I'm trying to find love, but I'm finding it in all the wrong places. See, when you on a hunt for something, you never run into the right thing the first time. You always run into all the wrong thing, and then you begin to think the wrong is right. And then when you finally get to the right thing, then all of your behavior now is wrong, because you've been dealing with wrong for so long. I'm talking to somebody. You've been dealing with dysfunction so long until now you bring your dysfunction even into something that is right. I'm speaking to someone right now. But I want to unpack that a little bit, because I talked a little bit about my home and how I grew up, but I want to talk about the home in general. The home is the arena where acceptance and deep affection and pleasure in something and approval is communicated and expressed. The home, it should be the arena, the place where all of those attributes and things of love should be communicated and expressed. And if it is not, then it's dysfunctional. It is what it is. If it is not, it is dysfunctional. Some people, they have an easy time expressing love and affection and emotion outside the house. I'm speaking to somebody. They'll go on a job and they'll start crossing boundary lines and talking about their house and what's going on at their home with their coworkers and with other people. But you're not expressing that within the home, where the safety net is being expressed outside the home, and that's dysfunctional. And it causes dysfunction within the family unit. And that needs to stop. Let me keep going. The lack of love. I want to talk about the lack of love and then give you kind of like a cross comparison of what it's like when there is love being expressed in the home. When there is a lack of love or deep pleasure or is being communicated within the home, what typically happens is when there's a lack of love, it breeds dysfunction. The person who's living underneath that, there's no way they could come out a healthy, functional human being. Impossible. If you haven't had what's mirrored in front of you, being loved, being accepted, being appreciated, being communicated, a deep pleasure and intense feeling, if you haven't had that at home, it breeds dysfunction. What else it breeds? It breeds rejection. It doesn't take long for people to figure out, by looking at other people and how their expression of love is within their home, for them to figure out, wait a minute, my house ain't nothing like that. Wait a minute, my marriage ain't nothing like that. Wait a minute. When you start seeing what real love looks like, then you start thinking about what you in right now. And you're thinking to yourself, my relationship is nothing like that. And then it causes a upset within you, because you're thinking, I just had an opportunity to see what love looks like, and I don't have that. I'm missing something. So it makes you feel this deeper inner feeling of being rejected, because you're like, if this is what it is and this is not how I'm being treated, then I must not be good enough. I must not be worthy of this kind of love. For this person to think that it's okay to call me out of my name and call me adjectives, to put their hand on me, to say things that's not becoming of me. This person must think it's okay to just vicariously walk up out the house and don't say anything and come back the next day. We all have different facets of what rejection looks like, but it all equals the same. When there's a lack of love in the home, it breeds anger. Because once you figure out what it is and you realize what it's not, then you're angry, because you start thinking like, What am I doing? Why am I still allowing, letting, and permitting, those 3 words I talk about in my book? Why am I allowing, letting, and permitting this behavior to continue? So it breeds a sense of anger. It also breeds emotional damage because you start looking inward, outward. You're trying to figure out, what is it about me that I can't have this kind of love? What is it about me that I'm just, putting up with all this? And if you're in a relationship right now and you're feeling like I'm putting up with a lot of this, then it's time for you to do some evaluation. It is. And then start communicating how you actually feel. While at the same time mirroring what you know love to be. Okay? So it also breeds social issues. People who have not, felt like they've lacked in this love being mirrored within the home, they always have social issues. Hard to make friends, hard to trust people, hard to connect with people, hard to, be in settings, with people, one-on-one, face-to-face, people that have social issues. And it also breeds low self-esteem, along with a host of other disorders, low self-esteem, low imagery of yourself, and thinking that, it must be something about me, the reason why I can't experience this kind of love. I tell you all the time, you live one life. You only get one. You don't get to leave here, come back, as a cat or, a pigeon, or you only get one. So it's best to make the most out of the one that God gave you. And sometimes you have to make some hard choices and hard decisions. Sometimes you have to hold people accountable. The way you bend a tree is the way it grows. If you bend that tree and it's always been okay with you, it's time for you to unbend that and say, hey, I think we need to sit down and have a talk. I think that, we've been in this relationship, or we've been married for X amount of years. And I think it has always been this way, but that way isn't normal. And I'm seeking better ways and better opportunities on how we can have an expression of love and how we can communicate that within our home and our structure. Also, I want to give the contrast to that. Love express. When love is being expressed within the home, what does that look like? Now, this one was a little bit challenging for me. I can tell you all day long, I can preach all day long and talk all day long about what it's like when love is not expressed within the home, because that's how I grew up. So I found it very challenging when I was doing this portion of it, when love is expressed in the home, because I didn't grow up that way. And it has been expressed in my home. So it was hard for me to try to pull, but then I just started in prayer, and I just, went to God, and I just kind of saturated on his word, to come up with, some key points when love is being expressed in the home. That means that it's acceptance. It's just the opposite in contrast. When you're not loved, there's no acceptance. When you are loved and love is being expressed within the home, there is acceptance. Acceptance for who you are. Not who I want you to be, not who I need to make you curtail for me. Not, it's accepting you with all of your little funny quirks, all of your little habits, all the little stuff that you do, the things that you say, and how you are. You walk with a slant on your leg, and you cross your legs, this way every time you sit in the chair. Or you sit on your leg when you get ready to eat your food. All of your little quirks and habits and things that you do. I leave the shower door open because I'm trying to let it dry organically on its own instead of closing the door. All of those things, they accept you for that. And they're not trying to change you. How do you know when a person is trying to change you? That's interesting. Because they always point out to you what you need to change. Woo! I'm helping somebody right there. When there is love in the home and it's being and you're being accepted in the home, your significant other, your husband or your wife, they're not trying to make you curtail for them. They accepting you for who you are, not pointing out everything that you're not. Now that's real there. That's real. One time my husband, he was saying something to me and he was pointing out something about something that I do. And I wanted to say so bad. I wanted to say, well, sweetheart, that's what you married. I mean, what else can I say? That's what you married. Oh, that acceptance just hit you right there. I know it hit you right in that spot. Because you're thinking, well, I mean, if they know it irritates you, that's what you married. Now, that spouse can make a concerted effort to try to, not irritate you. But, I mean, you should not be pointing out everything about them that irk you. Because, listen, that's all. I tell people all the time, if you got to point out everything about your spouse that irk you or irritate you, you shouldn't have got married. You should have stayed single. Because it is impossible for two people to come together and twain and become one flesh because you were different when you met. You got to take your two indifferences and bring them together so you can twain and become one. If you spend all of your time trying to make your spouse like you so that the one will fit, you're just wasting your time. You shouldn't have gotten married. You should have stayed single. Because when you by yourself, you can do whatever you like. You don't have to change nobody. You ain't got to fix nobody. You ain't got to be telling them what they do to irk you. It's all about you. People that feel like it's all about them should not get married. Now, I'm an advocate for marriage. I believe in marriage. I believe in the union of marriage. I love marriage. I love being married. I don't like being single. However, if you spend your life trying to make somebody like you, stop it. Stop it. I'm freeing somebody right there. Free yourself, child. Stop it. I tell my husband, I say, hey, you do a lot of stuff that irk me, but I don't open my mouth. You know why? Come on. I knew this about you when I married you. It's no big deal. You leave your socks rolled up on the floor. Hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to keep pointing out your socks on the floor. That's a total waste of my time. Two people coming together, you are not going to come together and them two people going to become just like you. And if you think about it, you already know you got problems. So why would you want your spouse to be like you? I'm helping somebody right there. You trying to make your husband like you. Well, I like my food to be cooked like this. He know I like my pancakes a little crusty around the edges, and he keep making them soft. He know then you make the pancakes. Two coming together as one, it does not mean you trying to make your spouse like you. Two coming together as one mean that I'm going to accept my spouse with all of her or his indifferences. And they're the other part of me that I'm not. I'm helping you right there. Your spouse is the other part of you that you're not. So if you're the one that always have to clean the garbage can out when you take the garbage bag out the can, and your spouse just throw another bag in the can, okay. If you have to have that garbage can clean every time you put a bag in there, then you clean it. Stop making your spouse clean it because that's how you like things. No, you do it. That's how you keep peace within the house. That's how you accept your spouse for all the indifferences. Maybe you grew up and you had to wash the garbage can out every time you took the garbage bag out, but your spouse didn't. Don't make your spouse relive how you grew up. Because 9 times out of 10, it probably irritated you when you grew up. Woo! I'm helping somebody right there. Free yourself, child. Free yourself. Oh, let me keep going. Because see, I could have stayed right there. People who grew up in a love-expressed environment, they have wholeness. Wholeness. There's a sense of wholeness there. You don't see them, every little thing just set them off, and and they have all this anxiety about every little thing, and touchy, about every little thing. They have a sense of wholeness about themselves, kind of rooted about themselves. I don't get me wrong. People that grew up in Love Express homes, they got problems too. They just don't have problems like people who grew up in dysfunctional homes, but they still have problems. People who grew up in Love Express homes have great self-esteem because they were affirmed on a daily basis. Their voice was validated within their home. That was not the case in my home. We didn't have a voice. We were mute. We blended in with the paint on the wall. But people who grew up just the opposite in a Love Express home, those folks have great self-esteem about themselves because they were validated. They were validated by their parents. And that's what every child wants. Every child wants to be validated and loved and accepted and appreciated by their parents. And some kids, they didn't grow up that way. And if you're a parent right now and you're listening to me and you're raising your kids, raise your kids in a way where they feel accepted and they feel validated. As a parent, when I first started out with my daughter, I didn't do that. I just kind of, okay, you here, type. Same thing I just talked about up there. More toleration. Okay, you're here. And by the time she was about 4 years old is when I decided, you know what, I need to be a parent. It ain't a matter of you're here. I need to figure out what to do with you now that you are here. But I spent the better part of her infancy life up until 4 years old, spoiling her and ruining her, making her, the whole center focus of my entire life and existence and being, until by the time I wanted to start giving her structure and some grounding and some normancy, I fought against myself and what I was doing before. Just kind of throwing money at it and putting her in all the great things and all the great places and all the good stuff. And it wasn't stuff that she wanted, it was her mom. But at some point, I thank God, I woke up. We all will. Listen, kids don't come with instructions and rule books. When you push them out, they don't come with any of that stuff. You got to figure this stuff out. And it's usually by trial and error. Those who always judge their parents and talk about what their parents should have did in their lives and, oh, I should have been able to have that G.I. Joe toy. I don't know why I didn't get roller skates for Christmas. People who grow up with all of those ideologies about what their parents should have did when they were growing up and what they felt they was missing, wait until they become parents. And they screw it up just like their parents did. And they go, oh, Lord, now I know how my mom felt. Whew, this child is just working my nerves. Now you know. My daughter is a parent now, and she tell me all the time, she said, Mama, you make this thing look real easy. And I ain't gonna lie, I judged you a lot. When I was growing up, she said, but I can see now why you did at least 90% of the things you did. You were just frustrated and you trying to make it work, and you wanted to make certain that I, didn't become a statistic. You wanted me to do something with my life. I totally get it. I tell her all the time, if I could do it all over again now, being a little wiser, I would. Not the way I did it before. But in spite of that, God helped me raise her, and she wound up being a phenomenal woman of God. So I appreciate God for what he did, that he intervened in that by the time she was 4 years old. And it was an upheaval all throughout her young adult life. But I'm very proud of her and the things that she has accomplished, the things that she is, and the parent that she is right now. Very proud of her, and my son as well. Like I said, we're not perfect as parents, but we can do our part to express love. Let me keep going. Some of the good things that when you grow up in a Love Express home, there is good imagery of yourself. Good imagery of yourself, because your parents is always affirming you, and they're loving you, and they're telling you that, like, oh, you look pretty today. Oh, that color is great on you. Oh, I'm so glad that you're my son. I'm so glad you're my daughter. You're so smart. Oh my goodness, I knew you can do it. They're your greatest cheerleader. And they're there helping you with homework and doing all those things. I didn't have any of that growing up. So in my adult life, sometimes I have to check myself that I'm not looking for validation and looking for a voice. I have to really check that area of my life because I didn't have that growing up. And sometimes I catch myself when I'm looking for validation and approval from other people. And God has dealt with me tremendously about that. Now I go straight to him. If it's good with him, then I'm good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is an ever-going process. You ain't gonna never arrive and get there. You gonna get listen, when you get there, you gonna be then got there. You gonna be then got there with the Lord. You gonna be in heaven already. We're growing every day. We're maturing every day. We are processing every day. We are incorporating these things that we learn every single day. And you're gonna miss it sometime, and then you dust yourself off, pick yourself back up, and start it all over again. That's what we're in called life. You ain't gonna get everything on the first go run, first try, first run, but you dust yourself off and you pick up your bootstraps. I talk about that in my book, and you just keep going again. Mm-hmm. Listen, people who grew up in Love Express homes they have happy personalities and a host of other positive qualities. They have happy personalities because the environment in the home was happy. Yes, the environment in the home was a happy environment. People laughing, and there's plenty of joy. And you have your culture and your customs and things that you did for holidays and all of those things that remind you of all the great times and good times. And sometimes I have to look past my home and look at my grandmother's home, because a lot of things that I'm talking about in a structured sense with having a good home environment, I found that at my grandmother's house, not at my house. And that's why I used to love to go over there, because I everything I needed growing up in a home, it was at my grandma's house. So when I got to go there on the weekends, I loved it. Growing up, my siblings, they hated it because all their friends was back at home. I ain't care nothing about that. I just loved the structure. I love going to bed early on time, eating popcorn, and my grandma be watching Dallas and Knots Landing, and we be in there on the floor watching TV with her, eating popcorn, and we go to bed and say our prayers. And Sunday morning, we was up bright and early, and she would take us to church. I love the structure. That's where I got a sense of structure in what a family and what a home should look like. And then when I got back home, it was kind of like it's on and popping. It was everything going on. So I love the weekends when I got to spend with my grandmother. So I want to talk a little bit about, we talked about the growing up in a dysfunctional environment, when the home, is not functional. And then we talked about what it's like to grow up in a dysfunctional environment. And so I want to do a little contrast to it as well, to talk about when it's too much on either side. You can grow up too much dysfunctional and it just causes all kind of chaos. And then you can grow up with too much, as I call it, you can have too much love expressed in the home. Mm-hmm. And there is such a thing. It can be dangerous. And what I mean by that? Well, in the lack of love, when there's a lack and it's just too much of it expressed, that lack of love, it breeds anxiety and poor choices made from your pain. And low self-worth, and you accept anything and any kind of behavior. You allow and permit things that occur into your life. That's when it's too much dysfunction, and that was my life. I had so much dysfunction until it had painted a picture for me, and then that picture became normal. And so it caused anxiety and poor choices growing up in all my young adult life, and low self-esteem and low self-worth, where I allowed and permitted things to occur in my life. Until one day I just woke up and said, no more. Never again. Can't do this. But now you can have a little, I love to say, I'm going to say it, those of you, don't turn me off because I said it. Sometimes you can have too much love. But you're expressing it in all the wrong ways. Yes, it is such a thing. For instance, you can have so much love and too much love. And typically the firstborn kids, they are, the culprit for this. And I know my daughter was. She was the culprit of this. she was the first, I'm the last child of 5 girls. So she was the first, girl from the baby. In other words, like I'm the last one that's going to have kids. And so she was my firstborn. So you could be too spoiled and you could give them too much until they are spoiled. And, back in the day, we used to call it spoiled rotten. Too much outward expression. That's different. I'm not talking about too much hugs and too many kisses. No, you can never give enough hugs or kisses or I love yous to your children. I mean too much outward expression, meaning too much too soon. You giving them, like my daughter, when she was born, oh no, I couldn't shop at Walmart for her. I had to, back in Chicago, used to have this real big good department store called Casapiri Scott. Where the average little dress for a little infant girl was $54, and that was back in 94. So my child couldn't wear any old thing. She couldn't wear Walmart. Oh no, she had to wear Casapiri Scott. And everything I bought her was the matching set. Looked like she belonged on the cover of a magazine. And people used to look at her and call her Hollywood. Girl, your mama dressed you. I gave her too much outward stuff. Her bedroom, all kind of furniture with canopy tops and just every toy you can think of, in her toy chest. I'm trying to relive my life through this child. Oh, help me. See, I'm helping somebody. You reliving your life, your childhood through your children. You trying to give them everything that you didn't have growing up. We all guilty of it. I know my husband, he was going around getting my son started playing baseball. He was going around buying him all kind of cow to hide gloves and stuff for $200-$300. But when he was a kid, his mom, a single mom, couldn't afford it. He used to get the little plastic ones that was about $10 at the local discount store. So he would have given my son something that he never had. But my son never appreciated it because he didn't understand the value. It is a such thing as giving them outward expression too much too soon. God is so infinite. He doesn't give us too much too soon. And so we shouldn't give our kids, like giving your 7-year-old the keys to your car and tell them to pull the car around in the driveway. You wouldn't do that. So we can't give them too much too soon. Wearing designer clothes and all that kind of stuff growing up, And I'm guilty. I turned my head up. I done did it. I done bought all kind of Jordans and LeBron James shoes and I done did all that. And my kids, they don't remember. Well, they may remember it, but what they hold dear is the moments that we spent with them and the time that we put in them and the sacrifices that we made for them. They don't remember them Jordans and them LeBron James shoes and all that other stuff. So if you vicariously trying to live your childhood through your children and give them everything that you wish you had when you was a kid, stop it. Free yourself, child. Take that money and put it in a college fund for them. So when they get ready to go to school, they ain't going to be taking out loans and then working 2-3 jobs trying to pay them off and in debt before they ever get started with their life. I'm speaking to somebody right there. I told you, if I can do it all over again, my older self would tell my younger self, girl, don't you dare spend $200 on a pair of gym shoes when you can fund your child's college education. Let me keep going. And when you give them too much too soon, let me tell you what it breeds. It breeds arrogance, entitlement, ego, they materialistic. If it ain't got a brand name on it, they don't want it. A culture of always wanting more and feeling like they deserve it. And it's an unattainable and unsustainable expectation that they have growing up. Where they get to be young adults and think somebody owe them something. Yeah, I'm speaking to somebody right there. Now, I did the comparison and contrast. And now I want to talk about God's love really quick. Here are some facts. In the King James, I did a little research. In the King James Version, love is mentioned 310 times. Now, it all depends on what Bible you're reading. Because if you go in the New King James Version, love is mentioned 361 times. It all depends on what version. But it's mentioned quite often. I wanted to get you to understand that love is mentioned in the Word of God quite often for a reason. Let's unpack it. What does God have to say about love? His love. Let me tell you about the 4 types of love that there is. 1, it's called storge love. It's an empathy, a bond type of love. Now, I may be pronouncing that wrong, but it's S-T-O-R-G-E, storge. Storge? Storge. We're going to call it both. I told you I'm learning right along with you. And that's an empathy, a bond type of love. Then there's another type of love called eros, E-R-O-S. And that love is a me-orientated love. It's kind of geared toward you. It's a romantic love. It's a feeling. And then there's another love called philia, P-H-I-L-I-A. That love is a we-orientated love. It's a friend, a bond type of love, a we love. And then there's another type of love called agape, A-G-A-P-E love. And that love is unconditional God's love. That's the love, friends, that we want to strive for. That unconditional agape love, God's love. Let's unpack it. God's love. Let me give you some characteristics of his love. And the reason why this is so important, because I talked about it earlier. Remember, I said if you put your hands on somebody, you do it in the name of love. Shame on you, because God is love. Knock, 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 knock. God is love. So if you putting your hands on somebody in the name of love, that ain't love. Because you doing it, if God is love and you putting your hands on somebody in the name of love, you ain't doing that in the name of God. Come on now. You are misaligning the word of God to your everyday life. But listen, let me unpack it for you. God's love. Number 1, his love, give you some characteristics. His love is acceptance. Remember, I talked about those comparison and contrast growing up in different type of homes. God's love is about acceptance. Where I find that at? That is in Jeremiah, the 1st chapter and the 5th verse in the NIV version. It says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. It says, before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. It's acceptance. He accepted you. You got to be accepted by anybody. God already accepted you. He said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So while you rummaging through life, looking to be accepted by people, that's what I had to get through this little head of mine. You trying to be accepted by people. God said, I knew you before I formed you in the mother's womb. I accepted you for who you are because I created you. Let's unpack it. Number 2, God's love. His love is sacrificial. Woo! All my married people, his love is sacrificial. All my mothers and fathers, his love is sacrificial. What are you sacrificing? Let's unpack it. John, the 3rd chapter and the 16th verse in King James Version says, for God so loved the world that he, all capitalized, I want to note that I wrote it down, he gave. He wasn't saying gimme, 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 gimme. He gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. He gave. God's love is sacrificial. It's all about giving. What can I give? What can I offer to someone else? What can I give in love? What can I give in inward and outward expression? I hear people use the word love so loosely. I'm asking you today, what have you accepted and what are you giving? Yep, let's keep unpacking it. God's love, the 3rd thing, his love protects. His love protects. He's not the culprit or the person who is putting his hands on folk and doing all kind of stuff and causing chaos within the family structure. His love is not causing trauma and causing headaches for the people who have to live with you every day. His love protects. Woo! Where I find that? Isaiah, the 41st chapter, and the 10th verse in the NIV. This is what it says. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. God's love protects. Yes, it does. It protects. It protects those whom he loves. So if you putting your hand on somebody or causing them trauma, headaches, heartaches, dysfunction, you ain't expressing God's love. You ain't expressing love at all. Because if God is love and his love is these attributes, which is protect, you're supposed to be protecting those whom you say you love. Oh, yeah. See, I told you I was coming for you. That is the word for today. Do you feel protected? Do you feel protected in your relationship? If not, time for you to evaluate, my sister or my brother. Time for you to evaluate. Let's keep unpacking because this is getting good. God love corrects. Yes, it does. His love corrects. Listen, I found that in Hebrews, the 12th chapter, in the 6th verse. It says, because the Lord disciplined the one he loved, he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. God's love corrects. So, are you with someone that's causing you trauma and dysfunction and headaches and all kind of stuff, and you haven't sat down and had a godly conversation? Of course not. Don't put yourself at risk. If you're in a relationship that don't have that type of means for you to correct some behavior, it's time for you, child, to start thinking about your options and what you need to do. It's time for you to get on your knees and say, okay, Lord, I need help. I need to get up out of this. Because remember, it protects. Your safety is God's primary concern. I'm helping you right there. Listen, let's unpack it. God's love is trust. His love is trust. Where I find that? In Numbers, the 12th chapter, in the 7th verse, in the NIV says, but not with my servant Moses of all my house. He is the one that I trust, said the Lord. It's not just a matter of Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, where we trust in the Lord with all thy heart. It says God's love trust. He trusts us. He trusts his servant. Love, you can't love someone and don't trust them. That's it. That's the word for tonight. You can't love someone and don't trust them. Every word they say, you checking and double checking. You in pants pockets, coat pockets. You checking purses. You checking wallets. Yep, I said it. You looking on the phone, trying to do the share location to see where they at. And now this is not just in a monogamous relationship or in a relationship. This is even in a friendship. Whatever your friend tell you, you checking and double checking. And girl, did she tell you the same thing she told me? That ain't love. That ain't love. His love trusts. And listen, next, the last point. God's love never fails. Come on now. That's enough to celebrate right there. In Psalms 136 in the NIV says, the psalmist David said, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his love endures forever. Listen, we could go on and on and on and talk about God's love, but in 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3 in the NIV says, if I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries, right? And all knowledge. And if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to the hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I have nothing. In other words, you can give all you want, you can do all you want, you can say all you want, you can even have gifts and prophesy all you want. But if you have love, you don't have love, you have nothing. God's love. 1 John, 4th chapter, 7 through the 8th verse in the NIV says, and this is the caveat of all caveats. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. God is love. So when you do things in the name of love, is that an expression of God? Because God is love. How can you say you love someone but put your hand on them when God is love? You ain't doing that in the name of God. How could you cause dysfunction in somebody else's life, in your family, your children's life, in the name of love? God is love. That is maligning God's name. Because the very attributes that we see in other people, that we witness in people who we love, they didn't get those attributes on their own. They got it because they got it from God. Listen, I could go on and on and on. But next week, when I come back, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more from 1 Corinthians 13, chapter 4 through the 8th verse. NIV, I want you to read it because I want to talk about what love, I just talked about what love is not. Next week, I want to talk about what love is, because we use the word all so loosely. And I want to make certain that when you use the word love or I love you, you actually know what you are saying. I want you to know without a shadow of a doubt, you know what the word is and what it looks like. Listen, I want you to know that God loves you. I've identified to you what it's not and what God is. God is love, and He loves you. He sent His only Son to die for you. He allowed Himself, His Son, Jesus. He was the manifested God in the flesh, and He allowed Himself to be bruised, to be spit on, mocked, ridiculed, beaten. He allowed Himself to bleed and hang on the cross, buried, and then He resurrected and did a Houdini in the grave. He did all of that so that He can come and have a relationship with you. That's love. Won't you give Him the opportunity to reintroduce Himself to you today? Won't you do that? He knows what you've been through. He knows who hurt you. He knows how you feel. He knows all the areas of your life where you're stuck. He knows that you never really felt real love or authentic love, yet He wants you to get to know Him and accept Him as your authentic love, your Savior, Jesus Christ. Won't you do that today? If you haven't, let me walk you through it. Say this prayer, right? Say this prayer with me. Father, forgive me. I'm a sinner in need of a Savior. I accept you, Jesus, into my heart. I believe that you came to show me the way. You allowed yourself to be crucified, buried, and you rose on the third day. And your word says that they that call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Jesus, I call upon you as my Savior. I open my heart to you, and I want to make you my Lord and Savior and follow you for the rest of my life. If you said that prayer with me, you were born again. Welcome to the family, child. Listen, there's so many benefits of being in the family of Jesus. I want to talk a little bit more about that on next week. Please share this broadcast. Hit that share button. Anytime I get a chance to sit here and teach with you guys, it is an opportunity and a privilege. Thank you so much for joining CK Bone Ministries. And remember, I'll see you on next week on the 7th, 7 o'clock a.m. devotion, Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock p.m. Child, I'll be back. Central Standard Time, going over part 2 about God's love. We talked about what it's not. Now we're going to talk about what it is. Until next week, I'll see you soon. Love you.